Well, I'll just bring up my agenda so I can see what I'm doing. So do you say we are quorate with three of us now? Sorry, I can't hear you, Count Colin, because you're
Well,
Yeah, Councillor Burns is just joining the meeting.
okay. It's
And I
fine.
think we have Samuel Almond. I assume he's on his mother's account. But
Okay.
um, he's absolutely free to remain with his video off if he doesn't want to switch his video on. That's no problem at all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody to this meeting of the Energy and Sustainability Working Party on the 9th of December. Next on the agenda, apologies for absence.
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Cox, Councillor Miller-Jones and Councillor Page.
Okay, thank you. Just third item on the agenda, declarations of pecuniary interest and requests for dispensation. So members are to declare any interest they may have on the agenda and agree any dispensations to stay under disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interests or non-registrable interests. So are there any? Nope. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So we'll go to the minutes of the previous meeting. Have you got those? Do you want to share them, or does anyone want them shared, or are you okay? Should we share them then, Colin, just to make sure?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
sorry, just get mash it on the screen. So I can see them on my screen, but I don't think that's them actually being shared.
Oh, they're not sharing. No, I can't see anything at the moment.
How's that?
here we go.
There we go. Alan, you've got your hand up. Do you want to say anything first, or?
I have. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank
Good,
you.
good. Councillor Smith, you were both present and absent, which is pretty amazing, really. And I don't think that was for different portions of the meeting. So can we strike you as present as chair
I can't remember. Wasn't
in
that the last chair? The last meeting? Who chaired the last
It's the other way
meeting?
round. You weren't multitasking, Chair. Sorry, you were absent.
Okay, I was absent.
Councillor,
Yes,
as it says in the welcome bit in minute
yes. So
36.
Councillor Cox, chaired
So
that
we just
meeting.
strike you from the present list and leave you in the apologies list.
Okay.
Because
No, that's
people would
fine.
have
Thank
been
you.
looking back at this in 50 years' time and scratching their heads and thinking, how did she do that?
Yes, yes, probably.
With admiration.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Um, okay, so shall we look through, or we got some matters arising anyway, haven't we, on the agenda? So I don't think there's anything else from those. Um, so if we can just give a proposer to agree the minutes,
Subject to that amendment.
subject to that amendment. Yes, thank you. So Councillor Stinchcombe, thank you, and seconder Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Yes. Okay, thank you. So we've agreed those. Should we just look down and see if there's anything else on the matters arising that's not perhaps picked up on the agenda? We've got some there. So recycling, all councillors. What was the all councillors bit?
That's to
Oh,
find a location to put the horse chestnut tree. We're now at an ideal time of year, really, to help the resident out in
okay,
relocating their horse chestnut tree.
right. I can see we've got that on the agenda anyway. That Gary was going to update us. That's fine.
Can I just say, I have tried to contact the resident. I haven't heard anything back. So she's
Okay.
on my list to recontact. So if anybody has any kind of in with this person, that would maybe be a help. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Gary. Should we move down? See if there's anything else. Quick wins.
I think that's an agenda item anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, it's fine. Carry on, page. We're going to talk about all these, I think, anyway. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we've agreed the minutes. Going on to the actions from the previous meeting, not on the agenda. The first item is for myself, EcoVend. Haven't had any further communications from West Suffolk councillors around expanding that at all. I think what we might do is to I might circulate to all us in the town council and see if there's any ideas about where people think we might benefit from a second EcoVend. Yeah.
Chair, do we have any feedback or data coming through from West Suffolk on what's happening with the first EcoVend machine at the leisure centre, to whether people are actually using it?
I haven't had any statistics, so I think that's my next stop, is to ask, because I noticed there was a fellow West Suffolk councillor asked under a Freedom of Information request for the figures for the returns on that, how much it's getting used, etc. So so that has been sort of going on a bit of a chat between us councillors on West Suffolk. So what I can do is perhaps ask for, rather than a Freedom of Information Act, I can just ask for the statistics, to be honest, from Councillor Jarvis. I'm sure he's got them. So I'll do that. I'll approach Councillor Jarvis to get an update on that. And also perhaps I'll do an email round to everyone to see if they've got any ideas about where we could put the second one, or even a third one, if that's the case. Councillor Smith, you want to speak? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
From speaking to Councillor Jarvis, I mean, the figure sticks in my mind that I think this is all the machines they've got in West Suffolk. It's just a couple, isn't it? I think something like 25,000 bottles have been recycled. Because I think the reason request in freedom of information request went in is because certain councillors seem to think it's better off just people doing litter picking. But I don't think you can pick up 25,000 bottles of litter picking. There you go. That makes sense.
Okay, 25,000 bottles over how long?
I don't know.
Since it started. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just perhaps I'll ask Councillor Jarvis to clarify that.
Chair,
Thanks.
shall we ask our marketing department to run some social media just to actually push on that?
Yeah, that would be good. So
Thank
to
you.
say that we've got one in the leisure centre and to use that.
And how it works, etc. So people
Yeah.
feel confident taking their stuff down there. People don't want to take their stuff down there if they're not confident they'll actually have an empty carrier bag on the way back.
Oh no. Yeah. Yeah, so and how it works with the app, etc. That would be great. Okay, we'll do that then on that. Any other questions around the EcoVend? No. Okay, so the next one is about the Chalkston open space. So that was Councillor Miller-Jones and Colin. So Colin, have you got an update for us there?
I can do. So Councillor Miller-Jones and I had visited the site, measured it up, and we've been looking at various possibilities of sort of hedging. And thank you to Councillor Stinchcombe for his email earlier, providing some information on some potential hedging. I have to say that's a better price than we've been looking at for Willow. There's various places around, none particularly close. Milton Keynes is the closest I've found, where there are companies that sell willow, what they call fedging, which I think is a portmanteau of fence and hedge. And basically, they will hold classes showing people how to weave the willow
All right.
into various attractive, ornate fencing patterns, so that in winter it probably looks a bit like a wooden willow fence, but an ornate one. And in the summertime, of course, it is grown up. It does need to be kept in check in terms of pruning, etc. But it is quite expensive, just on the face value of the prices that they care to put on their websites. Obviously, they're working on a retail domestic rate, and I can talk to them about, potentially, if we're talking about hundreds of meters of willow, what a more realistic price would be when you're talking about that sort of scale, and whether or not there's interest, perhaps the community residents might be interested in learning how to weave willow to create those things themselves. So that's kind of where we've got at the moment. The privet hedge Councillor Stinchcombe has highlighted is a kind of instant hedge from what I looked at from your paper, and having rebuilt a hedgerow outside my own house, the privet is the bit that grows fastest. It's pretty bulletproof. I mean, we were fairly brutal when we cleared the mess, of which there was a hedgerow in there somewhere, and we replanted the good bits. The privet retook very quickly and looks very, very established. Some of the other plants they've established now, but they took a year longer. I don't know. I mean, perhaps Councillor Stinchcombe would care to just give a little bit of commentary on what he was thinking, to whether that was just using privet or whether it was part of the mix to try and get a bit of a mix, a bit of biodiversity in the hedge.
I'm afraid I had very little idea of what budget you had to play with, and I could see that by the time you had virtually hundreds of meters to speak, not just a few tens, is it? Ideally, it was going to get fairly astronomical. So I just went for what appeared to be cheapest. It's boring, maybe, privet, compared with doing wonderful things with willow. By the way, there is a certain amount of local knowledge amongst volunteers at East Town Park, because they have a willow tunnel. At least one, structure, not very well maintained, I have to say. So there is some knowledge there that we might be able to harness if we wanted to go down that avenue. I just went for privet because I could see a range. I think the first link I put in was for containerized. You buy a length that's ready to go, and presumably you dig some kind of a trench in the ground and bury your containers in, or try and up it out of its containers and plonk it in the soil. But anyway, it was stagecraft ready. You could wheel it onto the stage and say, look, Vernon Wood has come to have done the Sinan. But if you get the Macbeth reference. But then I moved on to thinking, well, what's cheaper than that? Because something like 12, I don't know, it was a tenner a meter or something. I think the instant, literally instant hedging. And you could get the same sort of height but bare root cheaper, and you could also get it even lower, toddler height. But the shorter it is, the less likely it is to be respected by feet, unless there is some wire threaded through it. I guess you can, because I've read somewhere you were interested in some kind of a barrier to stop people barging their way through. And I think, dangerous though it might be for someone running, just suddenly encountering a wire or two in the fence, that would be the most obvious way of stopping people going through, is just stretching a wire. But that's easier said than done, as I know from experience, because if you're applying tension to a wire, you've got to have some fairly good anchors that either end and preferably intermediate points as well, which all adds to the complexity of the task.
Yes, it is
So
one of the reasons why we were looking at willow, because you effectively weave a barrier. One of the difficulties of a lot of hedging, of course, you're absolutely right, is when you make the maze, but if people choose to push through, then of course the hedge will simply respond by not growing in that little bit because it keeps getting hit.
Yeah.
So you end up with gaps where you don't want gaps, which rather ruins the maze. Whether that's being slightly purist about a maze rather than actually this is about something to bring people into the open space and talking about biodiversity. But that was the thought. So I think you're right. We would need something to try and protect the integrity to a certain extent. Otherwise, you would never have a maze at all. It would just be a field of stumps of hedges.
Okay. So what's the next steps with that then at this stage?
I think Councillor Miller-Jones and I will need to look at the costs and see various different versions, and certainly look at the privet. The one thing that I think I haven't really checked on willow particularly, but I can vouch for privet, having got such a high content of it in my own hedgerow, is it does have berries. And it is one part of the garden where there are hundreds of tiny birds that inhabit that whole area. So the privet I'm used to back in kind of 1970s was quite sterile, but this is not that. But it is quite deep. It's probably about 6 foot wide, the hedge. So it's maybe a bit too bulky. You wouldn't get much of a maze in the area available. So we've got to try and work out some sort of solution. And we may not necessarily demand that the maze is hugely biodiverse, because there's plenty of space around to add that biodiversity into it.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, can I just ask, when you do sort of look at them, that you consider where we are, because obviously we don't want to be shipping something from the other end of the country, because that'll sort of be sort of contrary to.
You're breaking up a bit.
Sorry, I was just saying, when we do sort of looked at sorting it, just bear in mind where we get it from. We don't want to be sort of transporting stuff from the other end of the country. Really, we are trying to be bear that in mind, aren't we?
That's a fair point. I mean, just on websites, the best website people have put the most effort in to giving a lot of information happened to be, I think, right down in the West Country, but there was a provider in Milton Keynes. I haven't found any provider more locally than that. But what I was thinking was whether or not something like Sturmer Nurseries might be able to source something commercially, because of course willow doesn't need much of an excuse to grow. For instance, if we went the willow route, neither does privet for that matter. So it may be that they can actually get the sort of quantities we would need of hedging, because they might know that there's local people who would do that for us.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I wondered if there was some local farmer or whatever would actually grow the willow for us. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stinchcombe.
Well, of course, the osier beds in East Town Park are themselves a very, very, how green can you get? That's hundreds of meters, isn't it? That would need to be transported only. I mean, I don't know if that's got anything like the capacity. Obviously, they are harvesting osier whips for craft purposes, and they probably have surplus that rots in a corner somewhere. But whether they've got quite enough surplus to actually supply us is another matter. But it's worth a call through, isn't it,
Definitely.
to the rangers to try and see if they could. But
that's a great shout.
Yeah, you'd have to get them cut and presumably in the ground fairly rapidly, because they're not going to take very kindly to drying out at the cut end, are they? Necessarily, I don't know. I don't know. I've never tried it, but presumably the sooner they go into some soil, the better.
I would guess you're right. I think willow is famously, I don't know, I think there's a biblical walking stick that that got jabbed in the ground and grew. But I don't. I think there's plenty of examples where that's exactly what happens as well. So willow takes some killing off, but you're right. It clearly makes sense to get it in the ground straight away. But I think you can produce an enormous number of whips off of willow and get a very good success rate. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so well known.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions or updates on that? No?
And
Okay.
just to say that I believe the osier beds, I don't know if those are original osier beds from the time back when, or just reproduction osier beds for echoing what had been grown on that farm or on that estate. But that was part of Haverhill's industry a couple of centuries ago, wasn't it? So,
Right.
that would be something to emphasize.
Yeah.
We're carrying on a bit of a tradition, non-industrial tradition.
Okay. Right, then thank you for that. So we wait to hear further. On counter item C under 5, horse chestnut tree. We did mention that earlier, Gary. So you've got no other update to go with that? No.
No, like I said, they haven't returned to me. So if anybody
Okay.
knows this particular person, if they could reach out. If not, I'll try again the next week.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Chair,
Yeah.
I appreciate that the lady's been, when she first contacted us, she unfortunately her timing didn't fit with when you can actually move horse chestnut trees. But we are at the point where it could, in theory, be moved.
Yeah.
Shall we just find somewhere on the Chalkston open space to put it, so that we've done what we need to do for this lady? I'm not sure that we're going to come up with a better solution anywhere else, to be perfectly honest.
Away from the boundary, maybe, because it's going to grow into a monster tree, isn't it?
Well, potentially so, yes. So we will have to be careful where we put it because we don't want it to get in the way of other things we want to do. But it's a pretty big space. I think we can lose a horse chestnut tree in there somewhere. I think we just have to be cute about where we put it. But she's gone out of her way to actually offer it in the first place, and she hasn't forgotten that she's offered it. So I think we probably need to respond positively one way or the other. And I just don't think there's anywhere else that we could really put it where it wouldn't probably be removed before it had a chance to grow. I can't think anywhere else apart from Chalkston we could put it.
Okay. Fair enough.
So
Okay,
Gary,
then.
if you do get in contact, I think perhaps we can organise for the community wardens to I don't know quite how they'll shift it, but then we will find a location on the open space for it.
Yeah, I mean that was part of mine reaching out. So yeah, okay, proceed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Gary. Okay, next thing is the recycling. Myself, I've really not been able to get round to the shops and question them, or the local industries about what recycling they offer. Obviously, West Suffolk has increased the number of recycling we can do in town with the electrical items and the electrical leads and things like that you can now put, small electrical items that is, in the places like in the car park in Lower Downslade and other places around town where they've got the bottle banks and the clothes banks. They've also now got these electrical products that you can put in there. So that's good. So what I'm proposing I will do is I'm going to try and contact the shops and other local businesses by email and see if they all or who has the ability to take our recycled items. So that's what I'm going to do, if that's okay with everyone, or any other ideas that anyone might have. No. So that's what I'm going to do, because I've just hadn't had time physically to get round, which is what I hope to do, is actually go around and speak to them. But that's not happened. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to email them basically and hopefully get a result in a few weeks. Okay. So that's that one. 5E, environmental policy review. So that's over to you, Colin.
Apologies for that. That shouldn't be on the agenda anymore.
Oh,
Vicky and I looked back to just kind of get heads around what exactly it was we were supposed to be doing, and we actually did it back in the spring. There was a new policy adopted, and it got
okay.
called sustainability instead, which I think is probably why the
Okay.
environmental policy is left hanging around, because we changed its name. So that's all been done.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much then. So item 6, we're now over to the public forum. So we have a member of the public here. So it's just for members of the public to speak on matters within the remit of the committee if you wish to do so. So I believe Samuel's there. Have you got anything you want to bring up, Samuel?
Hello. I would like to talk about my new plans for a community-funded rewilding Haverhill project that I want to start. If we're not aware, there's been a population decline in all birds in England, with numbers dropping 8% between 2020 to 2025 and 39% from 1970 to 2025. We may not be able to fully change those numbers, but we can help them. My plans are to add bird feeding stations and bird boxes round Haverhill to aid this, with each bird feeder or bird box specifically placed and managed to maximise output. To prove that this works, me and my friend have been doing surveys around Haverhill in 3 spots. My home, that has bird feeders, bird boxes and trees surrounding. Then we did another in a place that just has trees. And then another at my friend's house that has no trees or no bird feeders nearby. These lasted 2 months, with every weekend we'll do the three surveys. The stats from the surveys show that 63% of the birds were spotted at the place with bird feeders and trees, with 55 different species. Then with the place with only trees, there was 33% of the birds spotted there, with 40 different species visiting. Then with the place with no trees, no bird feeders, only 4% of the birds were spotted there, with 13 different bird species. With this project, I would love to plant some more trees to help biodiversity and create protected no-mow patches around Haverhill to help insect populations. These wonderful additions would make wildlife bloom in Haverhill for people to enjoy. My goals are to educate the community about the wildlife in Haverhill and how they can help, and also get people involved in certain tasks. Thank you very much for this opportunity for me to talk about my passion and help rewild Haverhill. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. That's really good. Sounds like you've really taken this on board and looked at all the statistics, which are encouraging. Really, if we put bird feeders up and bird boxes, you say as well. So I know a lot of people put them in their gardens and that, but yeah, perhaps we can put some more around in our own areas. I don't know, Polly, what's the situation in our own sort of properties that we own, sort of around those?
Well, we've not done a survey, so what Samuel's said is very interesting, to see the difference in the number of birds. 55 different species, just shows you the impact it can have. I wonder whether Samuel might want to comment further, just in terms of what his vision is, what he would like to see us do specifically, in terms of, more than encouraging people, but whether you want us to actually, put a program up of putting some bird boxes up. Councillor Liz Smith, who chairs the meeting, led on the promotion of Swift boxes, and we have Swift boxes on the Arts Centre. We don't have any feeder posts anywhere. So in terms of green space, there's lots of green space in Haverhill, most of which is under the control of West Suffolk Council. So we would have to liaise with them. I don't suppose they're going to be terribly resistant about the idea, but it's just to understand whether we are encouraging the public to put bird boxes up in their own gardens, whether we're looking at a program of bird boxes in public spaces, and what sort of bird boxes and where we get those from. So I don't know whether you've got any other thoughts of how you see that happening.
See, what I was thinking is, doing like the program type thing of putting certain bird boxes for certain areas. So like small garden birds, or maybe let's say like woodpecker houses that you can get, and put them around Haverhill so we can attract different species, because many people see around Haverhill are pigeons and crows and all of them. But it's really, if you actually dive in deeper, there's so much more that everyone's missing out, and how we can attract more to Haverhill by putting up bird boxes and certain bird feeders to attract certain species of birds.
So, Chair, whether it would be worth us sourcing various different types of bird boxes, and maybe Samuel can give us some guidance on the exact sort of boxes that we should be looking at. Whether we, out of the environmental budget, looked at using it not so much as a grant scheme, but whether or not we allocated some funding from the climate change budget or from the environment budget to make available a certain number of bird boxes, 100 boxes, 150 boxes, or something like that, and people could put a request in to have bird boxes. I think we need a little bit of a application process to make sure that people have actual spaces for bird boxes in Haverhill. I'm just aware of, in previous council, I was aware that a free trees programme got abused quite a lot as gifts for people's Christmases outside of the town where they'd been purchased.
Yeah.
But we could certainly put something together, and then people could put those up, and we could perhaps ask them to take part in a survey, so we get an idea of what difference it's made. How many boxes get occupied in the course, because usually it's the second year, I think, that most boxes get occupied rather than the first, but depending when they get put up, that's a possibility. I think Sam's got his hand up again.
With our bird boxes in our garden, we put them up on the first week. Next week we had birds entering. It really depends on if the birds can see them, or if the birds have been attracted to that place before, they're most likely to pick up the bird boxes in the first year. Unless if we put up a bird box in a place where it's not you normally see little birds, it will take them probably about a year or two to find those bird boxes to nest in them.
Useful.
As well.
Okay. So is it okay if you liaise with Samuel, Colin, to perhaps source some boxes or get a program out, perhaps that we can advertise together with Samuel's help?
Yeah, definitely I can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me without me backing up. I was just interested in increasing the number of species of birds. I mean, I'm perhaps being a thick here, but how does that happen just by putting different types of bird boxes? Aren't they? How do I put it? How do they know they're there? Why were they coming to the area if they don't? Unless they know that, yeah. I was just wondering how that works.
So it's normally, birds have a really good sense of smell. So if we put up first bird feeders around the birds that we want to attract, so let's say we want to attract some bird like woodpeckers, we'll put up some peanut bird feeders around. The woodpeckers will smell them and will be like food. And then if we put some bird boxes, maybe a couple trees down, the woodpeckers, when they're trying to find a nesting site, they know there's a lot of food here, so they will try and find a nesting site there. And then normally what happens with birds, once they've nested in a spot, the family of birds, even the chicks, will probably stay in that area for their whole life.
Right. Okay,
Mm.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you, Samuel. Okay. Have we got any other questions? No? Okay. So we'll leave Colin and Samuel to get together and liaise about what we can do going forward. And we'll move on to the next item. It's great if you could stay, Samuel, but you don't have to if you don't want to for the next bits. Okay, thank you. So item 7 was street charging points for members to update on nominated roads. So have we got any update from anybody on these?
Chair, Councillor Mason, County Councillor Joe Mason, had a conversation with me earlier this week, and he wanted me to pass on thanks to councillors who have nominated roads. He explained that the programme has, I think, 3 waves of roads. I think A, B, and C, and the first wave. There's already quite a lot of investigation and work going on to establish exactly what road can be done, and therefore the roads that have been suggested, they've joined the programme and are kind of in wave B. Simply, that's a timing issue. There's no different. It's just that they'd already started on wave A. So yes, that's been very useful, and I think basically Councillor Mason's message to the town council and town councillors is keep them coming.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Anyone else got any comments on that or questions?
I would love to just somewhere on the Clements, but the trouble is the way that the estate was designed. It's inward looking, isn't it? And any roads are going to be away from the front of houses. It's not very designed car friendly, is it?
No, I think there will be estates like that are going to prove difficult. I think also on the Chalkston, isn't it? The way the design of those sort of 1960s council houses are, it's going to be very difficult to get roads nominated from there. But hopefully we'll get some.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before about putting them where people are more likely to have the electric cars. How do we know which is the best place to put them? Is there any survey at all? Who is most likely?
Yeah, Councillor Stinchcombe.
No, there's not been a Haverhill or county. It would need to be county-wide, wouldn't it? Survey like who's interested in buying or operating an EV in the next N years. But there was this not terribly well publicised scheme, wasn't there, to nominate your street. And we helped as a town council to publicise that more than the county council had already. So that has served as a self-nominating survey. People put their hands up, metaphorically speaking, and filled in a form on a website. So that has shown where a limited amount of demand is, but that's not really the purpose of the government. By the way, the government injection of money is really to the county council to do the legwork and to do the argy-bargy. Actually, there's very little of that is actually going into the installation of charging points. That is mostly private sector, which I feel personally a bit unhappy about. I thought this was an ideal opportunity if the public sector had the money to invest in it, because it owns a lot of the estate, doesn't it? It owns the streets for a start.
The money's only coming for the funding's only coming for the research to a degree.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of flexibility about how much they spend within the Highway Authority plug-in Suffolk, or how much they actually give as sweeteners to their contractors to get on with it. But I'm sorry, I don't have the figures in my head, but it's something like I think it's 16 million investment, and almost all of that is, like at least 12 or 14 million of that is coming from the private sector, is coming from a firm called Believe, without an E on the end. Yeah. So if you hear people going on about Believe, it's not a space of religious faith. It's necessarily, that might become part of it as well, but it is actually the what are they called? The charge point
Right.
provider. I forget what the acronym is for that.
Okay.
CPP, maybe, I don't know. So the point, the philosophy behind it, which I think was a bit difficult for councillors, some councillors anyway, to get their heads around, was that it's to be ahead of demand. Councillor Smith, that the idea is that you don't wait until people need it. You put it there so that people can make the choice to buy an EV rather than a petrol car when the time comes. So there won't be it is a chicken and egg, yeah. And a certain councillor, whom we all know well, was saying, well, there's no demand for one of the early proposals. But that totally missed the point. The point was to make it possible for people to have demand. And there won't be a terribly good match between demand and supply. And people will still have to go and buy more expensive charging elsewhere. But at least it's priming the pump, oiling the cogs, or whatever analogy you want, really. It's trying to make it possible for people, even just people, to see that it is possible and it's not difficult. You're like plugging in there instead of sticking a fuel pump hose into your petrol tank or diesel tank. So it's just to get the ball rolling, really. It's a piffling amount of money compared with the ultimate need. And the really good, sorry, this is not kind of off the agenda, but it is really good news for people who, like me, have street opposite their house, but don't have a driveway. The government has just made clear, I don't know when this will actually happen, but there is a definite intent now for legislation. It's probably maybe only secondary legislation rather than primary, in Parliament, to abolish the need for planning permission. Because when I participated in the trial that I'm participating in, which is a whole other story that's gone slightly south, I'm afraid, there was a requirement for me to have planning permission, which, as I think we've discussed here before, was ridiculous because the planning officer didn't even understand why I was applying for planning permission. And I told him, well, I've got to, otherwise I can't participate in the trial. And he said, oh, very well, we'll take your 250 quid or whatever it was, and we'll process it.
Yeah, give you permission. Yeah.
But there is no need for it, really. It was just a quirk of, oh, well, if you've got a driveway, no one needs to worry about your charge point, so we don't need to ask you to get planning permission. But someone who had to cross the pavement, oh, well, we better, because we're not quite sure how that's going to happen, we're going to ask you to get planning permission. But it's not really a planning permission issue at all. And I think, Councillor Smith, you said that Councillor Dave Smith, you'd had conversations with the portfolio holder, hadn't you, who'd said that they wouldn't even really be looking to require people to do it anyway. So I was upset about that, because it's kind of, are you in the know or are you not in the know? You could easily part with 250 quid unnecessarily, couldn't you? Just because you didn't know that it was going to be enforced. So
it's a case of enforcement, isn't it? Whether or not
that will all be abolished within, I mean, God knows how long any legislation takes at the moment, but that will be put to one side. There is still a severe cost. It's going to cost of the region of 1,000 quid to have it put in. But that could, for someone who is going to do a lot of charging in their household, that is going to be recouped reasonably rapidly, not within months, but in years, for sure.
Okay. Right then, so nothing further on that topic? No? Okay, so we'll go to item 8, which is the energy efficiency. So first of all, part A, the Arts Centre. So if the operations manager to give an update on work under the energy performance framework. So that's over to you, Gary, I believe.
No, there's nothing much on point A to come forward at all.
Right.
We were discussing that previously. That's in there. Dan's hands with a kind of application. The work we had obviously the intermediary meeting with our learned friend who advised us. I'm doing some work at the moment on RFQ, which is request for quotation, and I'm trying to liaise with our friend on that. So I'm hoping to have something for the new year on that particular piece of work. If you remember from that meeting we held 4 or 5 weeks ago now, we were decided to go with a VRV system for the Clement Centre with we have to put together a template for agencies to submit tenders for the which is called an RFQ, which is a reason for quotation. So that's kind of where it's sitting with that at the particular moment, and hopefully I'll have something ready for the new year.
So that covers item B as well. Is that what you're saying? Because the art centre was
that was
the
predominantly that is B. A, we haven't
that,
got any movement on A. There's nothing to report
okay.
back on that one at this time.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Okay then. Any questions for Gary on that at all? No. Okay. So we'll go on to the next item. Items for next meeting. If anyone's got anything they want to raise for next meeting, or ideas to put forward, or have we got enough to be going on with? No?
We still have quite a few outstanding projects to be going on with. So at this stage, I would suggest we
Yeah, exactly.
try and
Yeah.
sign some of those off.
Yeah.
The only thing I
Okay.
thought we might want to revisit, as it is, it could still be described as an ongoing project, but there have been various bits of work towards the bee-friendly town status.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I wonder whether it would be useful to perhaps have a review of exactly where we're at and whether or not
Okay.
we should be putting an application in now, given that we've done quite a few of the things requested of us.
Yeah. So who's actually leading on that at the moment? So I know
Well, that's
was
me.
that's you. So okay. Fair enough. You get all the nice jobs. Okay. Yeah, we can bring that up on the next item at next meeting, can't we? So yeah, thank you. Okay then. So if no one's got anything else, the date of the next meeting we've got down as 3rd of February 2026, and that's a Tuesday. And I'll now close the meeting at 7:48